Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another session. I am super excited to have a very special guest, Alex Street, the infamous storyteller, here with us today. Alex, thank you so much for joining us.
It is such a pleasure. I mean, we tried to do this before and we made it happen here again. And I think that there's always something special to that. The listeners don't care, they don't know. But like for us, I just feel like there's some for some reason, here we are, 2 weeks later now having the conversation when I assume it's supposed to happen. So I'm just happy to get on the call with you and to bring value for your audience in any way.
Yes. Can you start us off by just sharing who you are and what you do in this world? Because one of the things that I never really understood the power of until really I found you through, you were in Chris Harder's mastermind, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's how we
Mm-hmm.
can, yeah. So
Yep.
finding your work through the mastermind was so eye-opening to me, not only in my own healing journey, but also just in my ability to communicate more effectively. So if you want to dig into that, and then we're just going to take it from there.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll give you kind of the high level touch of my story as I can present it and start from there. So yeah, I'm your story coach. I show up and I'm here to help online entrepreneurs and business owners clarify their story and speak with confidence because that's what I've been trying to do my entire life and have dedicated every minute to. It was really just starting as like a storyteller. My mom was an actress, my dad was a photographer. So they're both storytelling in their own way. And I kind of just absorbed that and tried to get into acting and then took a left turn and became a youth pastor and was on stage every week. And so now I'm still on stage like a wanted to be as a performer, but now I'm speaking and speaking my own message to all these different audiences and storytelling in all kinds of ways. But as far as I look back now, there's always this confusion as to like, why is it not feeling aligned? I'm doing the thing, but something is missing. And I began to realize that I was using my story, Rylee, instead of sharing my story.
Mm.
And there's a slight difference there that showed up for me most significantly when about 10 years ago. So I wanted to be like my mom all the way growing up. And then 10 years ago, my mom died pretty suddenly, uh, diagnosed with stomach cancer. 4 weeks later, she was breathing her last. And so that was obviously significant. And a couple days before she passed, I asked her, like, why did you do what you do as an actress? What did you love about it? And she said, it was like it was giving people a gift. And
Mm.
so she saw this as this opportunity to stand on stage, be a character, but she said we share stories for the audience so that they take that with them when they leave to their lives. So there's this like we tell our story so that it shapes their story. And that was 10 years ago. Something clicked for me, something shifted. Obviously, I was in this wide open, emotionally vulnerable place. So that didn't really see itself materialize until I'd say about 3 years ago when I started to put this business into motion and say, what's the thing that I could do that I could talk about forever? What's the thing that comes easily to me? And it so happens to be speaking and specifically storytelling so that I can help people clarify their story because when you share your story, you shape the world.
Wow. That is
And that's where
so,
we are.
so beautiful. And I'm just like sitting here just so enthralled with your story because there's so many things that you talked about that are just vital to our growth and development as a human being. And equally for my spiritual entrepreneurs who are listening, it's not even necessarily about what you do specifically. It's not about the healing modality. It's not about this
Mm,
this training that you've done. It's how you framed it where it's like, I get to be a gift to other people. And it's so
right.
fascinating because I think it was like 4 or 5 months ago, I was in a group container and one of the guest speakers was Anthony Trucks. And he said that his biggest motivation every day was that he woke up and he would sit and have his time with God and he would ask God, help reveal the promise that I am to this world, that you have designed
Yes.
the gift that I am meant to be. And so when you
Yep.
said that, it was like this profound understanding that in everything that we do, whether you're looking to heal in your life from something from your past, whether you're looking to go forward in a big, bold, and beautiful way, you have to begin to understand that what you're doing is so much more than just like, hey guys, I have this cool offer, I have this cool thing, I can help you in this way. It's like you have to start seeing yourself as a gift. And actually,
Yeah.
I want to branch this off because something that you
Mhm.
said really struck a chord with me. And when it comes to God, the whole premise of him is his story of how he helps us, his deliverance, the gift that he is to us. And it's so
Yep.
fascinating coming into my own faith surrounding this and even looking at the work that you do specifically. I'd love to know how, because you do, correct me if I'm wrong, have a strong faith in God, correct?
So it's changed for sure over
Okay,
over the
let's hear about
years.
that.
We can do that if you want to, but
Yeah, what's that look like?
I can speak to it. I can kind of go wherever the path is that you want to take this. And I'm wide open for it. So it, finish your question and then we'll see where this goes. We'll see like
Okay.
what do you want to open up here?
So what I was relating was that in God's message to us is that it's in parables, it's in stories. That
Hmm.
wisdom in of itself, whether delivered or taken in, is not from this context of let me teach you these 5 steps. It's the ability to actually listen and to be able to deliver words,
Hmm.
knowledge, information, connection beyond just like, hey, I'm going to solve this problem for you, or you can solve this one problem.
Yeah.
And so for you, I guess I'm going to tweak my story a little bit, or I guess my question a little bit, but how has your evolution of coming from being a youth pastor to where
Yeah.
you are now, what has that looked like in terms of your story and your growth?
Yeah, this is so good. Okay. So, and I think I love this is the best part about podcasts, is it not? Where you just like open something up, you're like, "Oh, let's see where this goes."
Yeah.
And then if it's a good conversation, then we get to go with it and we trust each other and let's party. So, um I think for me, like I didn't grow up in a religious home by any means. There's if anything, it was actually rejected. Again, my mom really was like angry. I found out later, was like angry towards God because my dad died fairly, or my grandpa died fairly early. So she kind of carried that with her. And so it just wasn't in our home. I didn't start to really hang around a church or develop a faith of my own until I was 16. And it was because I was chasing a girl who said, "Hey, a little missionary dating. You, come on, we could date if you're a Christian." I was like, "Oh, okay, fine, whatever that is." Like as a high schooler looking for my own identity,
Yeah.
I said, "Sure, let's try that on." And then we did. And the fun story is through all the ups and downs and twists and turns, I've been married to that woman for 17 years now.
Ah.
And so whatever good news that story is, we've grown and shifted together. And so I came into that, I know, at a time when I was I was confused. I was confused in who I am. I was confused around my family. My parents got divorced a few years before that. I was confused about what I'm supposed to bring. And then, as I say, I tried on all these different identities in high school, and this brought some clarity. This idea that there's a place that I can belong, there's a story that I belong to,
Mm.
brought some clarity and some certainty when I needed it.
Mhm.
And I found a place where I could be completely, it felt like I could be completely authentic and ask all the questions and explore all the things. And it just felt like there was a safe place. And so, of course, I like lean into that. Right. And then with the creative mind, now I open up all these stories and I see all these things and I'm like, holy crap, this is good storytelling. Like there is, look beyond the facts that we're like trying to latch on to, and like this number verse means this exact thing, and if you step outside that you are wrong. If we look beyond that, like I thought this as a teenager,
Yeah.
I'm like, look at the story there, look at the story of Moses walking to this burning bush, like what is going on there? It's like he discovers something that nobody else discovered. Isn't that the meaning of it? Like that's, I started to say these kind of things, which um as I leaned into that and got into that role, then again, I loved the opportunity to teach some of that stuff and begin to focus as a teacher, as a speaker in that context. I loved, Rylee, the opportunity to step on stage with a room full of hundreds of middle schoolers and be like, do you like enter into the story here?
Mm.
Will you see, like, it's not just Jesus healing the guy who's lowered down by the friends from the rooftop. Let's see, who are those friends? What was their day like? And so I just found myself stepping in and taking a lot of creative liberty with the stories, and then really helping all of that focus on, because what's the point here? The point is community brings people to Christ.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would see in that, right? So when people are like, wow, Jesus heals, I'm like, I think there's something else going on here. So in your question around how do we see this and see how did I see this development of God and the story working through all of this? For me, it was always about being a part of this story.
Yeah.
And the
Mm.
story, as far as the scriptures go, are the best telling that we have, the best understanding that we through humanity have of what in the world is going on here, what outside the world is going on here. Here's our best attempt to understand it. And so I kind of step forward and still live with that. And that's how I'm moving forward today. Does that help? Where does that spark? What
Yes.
what shows up for you as I
No,
walk you
that
through that?
makes so much sense to me because it's the thing that I find when it comes to just even discussions about people about, okay, why do you believe in the universe? They ask me, why do you believe in
Mm-hmm.
God? It's the people get so hung up on the fact that it's like, well, I don't go to church. I don't want to go to church. It's like, church isn't like the premise of the story. It's exactly what you said. It's about the community. It's about coming
Mm-hmm.
together for a higher faith. And, everybody has their journey of how they're going to get to that place. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
in order to really be able to open up yourself to expand, even in just like a healing aspect, like you're on this journey to heal your life in some capacity or way, you have to learn to understand the value of your story. That even in the example that you gave, where it's all these men are coming together to bring
Yeah.
the man through the roof. I mean, there's so many
Mm-hmm.
like that. It's like the man with the leprosy, the blind man, the deaf man, right? The man who's mute.
Yep.
It's like there's all these other people around them that also had an entire day before all of a sudden they're doing this. And it's
Exactly.
in that coming together that there's this true miracle that's taking place at the pinnacle of union in something,
Mm-hmm.
in faith. And that when you're on this journey to discover yourself or uncover yourself, as I like to say, because really that's what we
Mm-hmm.
are, is we're moving so many layers of like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy enough, or I'm not loved enough, or this person
Yeah.
said this to me, and I got to make sure this person's okay before I am, and so on and so forth. It's like, even in business, I got to make these sales today, or I got to make this number this month, or I got to
No
figure out
doubt.
how to launch this program. It's like at the pinnacle of all those decisions is a coming together. And I think what you touched on is really powerful. And I'm like, I'm going to
Mm.
come back and even re listen to this one again myself, because I know I'm going to drop in your DMs and be like, okay, Alex, I got a couple more questions for you. And I'm going to
You
fill
know
them
I'm
into
here
the
for it.
show, because there's so many things that you're saying that are just so wildly important. And it's that as we walk through this journey of life, we are literally leaving a storybook behind. And
Mm.
we can say, oh, well, our life is only this like minuscule fraction of time. But it's like, so was Jesus's, just to keep with the context. And
Mm-hmm.
look at the ripple effect of change that he created literally just by telling the story of God. His
Yeah.
story was the story of God, but he still had a story in of itself. And then there was disciples who had a story about their lives and where they were and how they came to be and
Yeah.
why they tell this. And we have that same experience that we can live out as well. And for you, I'd really love to know how learning how to own your story has become a way for you to build the courage to take action in your own lives, in your own life, whether that was
Oh,
starting your
jeez.
business, whether that was deepening the strength in your marriage, becoming a father. Like there's so many
Yeah.
aspects. Like you can pick which
Mm-hmm.
one resonates most with you and then go with it.
Mm. This is such a good question, especially in this context. Again, like, I don't typically talk about, my faith journey on whatever podcast. It's usually about like, okay, how do I help people tell their stories? And we can go there, and this all kind of connected. But where I see, especially since we're hanging out here a little bit, is actually when you say the word courage, what showed up for me as I began to look at my own story was the courage to share, like, exactly what I just shared was like, yeah, but this is my journey. And actually, then, like, as I was a youth pastor, I started to have all these questions and it didn't seem like I fit in this box anymore. So that was a big reason for like leaving that role, was because whatever beliefs shifted and formed, and I had to go and dive deeper, discover more, and see where it is. And so for me, that was a terrifying thing
Yeah.
to share that journey. So someone's listening and they're either like, again, like stepping out of a box or stepping into another box. And either way, it can be frightening, right? To leave something that you know and go into something that you don't is the great unknown. It's the great mystery. It is what this life is, and it's what each chapter is kind of formed around. And for me, it was about 3 years ago. So I'd been out of my role for a few years and was starting a new business. And then I jumped into a mastermind, a business mastermind with Chris Harder. And I was like, I have this business idea. I want to speak to businesses about the next generation coming in, about Gen Z, because I understand them, or Gen Z. We're Canadians. I understand them. Um, and so I can help you understand them as well. And I came into this mastermind doing this. And then somebody helped me, and they helped me see, actually, Alex, like, what's the strength that you have to bring is actually your storytelling and your speaking. Teach us to do that. And you're on the right track. So that was September. That opened things up for me to see, whoa, that is it. And then as I had honesty to go back and see my story, and especially this faith journey that I was so confused on, and like, I think I can still only speak to these people, to youth pastors, to people within this context. So how could I ever grow a thriving business? All of those doubts and confusions were in there. You still tracking along?
Yeah.
So as I'm in that space, all of that confusion is still in there. But then when I looked back and saw the journey, I was like, they're right. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so it gave me the freedom, it gave me the courage and the clarity to get on my own microphone, on my own podcast that I hosted back then, which was called Made for This, and share my faith journey, my story of like why I left and why I did these things. And I didn't know who was going to listen, but here was the real fears. The people, if I talk about this honestly, if I talk about my journey honestly, and I think that this is a lot of the fears that a lot of people have in sharing their story, is if I share my story honestly and authentically, the place that I'm coming from will lose respect for me. And the
Mm,
place that I'm going to won't have respect for me. So for
mm,
me in this context, it was like my church, my community, that all of my friends that I had there, if I talk about this honestly, I'm going to lose their respect. And people in the business world, why would they ever respect me as an authority if my only background is being a youth pastor and speaking on stages in that context? Like, what do they care if I came down from the rafters in a chicken suit for 500 people, And so there was that, and that fear was holding me back from like, and if I kept that, I would never move forward.
yeah.
But finding the clarity in that story allowed me the courage to show up in that. And I would say for the past 3 years, it's been a deepening of that identity to the place where I truly feel like I'm showing up for you right now in my very best self. This is all that I have. I've got nothing else to hide from.
Wow.
And I feel like that's the same. You talk about father, marriage, all these things. It's like I'm just discovering every day,
Yeah.
but there's no more armor.
Ooh, I love
And
that.
that's the courage that it's required.
Oh, that was so powerful because you hit the head on the nail right there. It's when I work with people in their self journey of healing, it is exactly what you said. It is the
Mm-hmm.
fear of losing the respect of where they are coming from and the
Mm-hmm.
fear of not being respected of where they want to go.
Right.
And primarily telling their story. Well, I don't want to step on these people's toes and I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And, I don't want somebody to feel like I'm letting them down or shutting them out or calling them out. And, and then on the other side of it, it's like, but then how do you find empowerment if you can't find that voice within yourself? Because it's not at the end of the day with intentionality that you're going in to say,
Yeah.
like, oh, these people were POS, like, can't believe they did this to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not approaching it from a victim mentality. That's the point of healing. And equally,
Yep.
just even bridging this back into like entrepreneurship, there are these ups and these downs. And exactly what you said, why are these people going to follow me along this journey? And why are these people now going to listen to me in this new stage of my development?
Yeah.
And for the spiritual entrepreneurs that are listening, it's you likely are struggling with the same thing. I know personally I did and still do today as I'm entering a whole
Yep.
new season. I'm being called to step back more. I'm literally about to have a baby. Like there's only so much you can do in this period of time,
Yes.
but it's that authority piece. We want to be heard, we want to be seen, we want to be taken seriously. And I'd love to know how you help
Mm,
your clients and maybe even sprinkle in some of
that's
yourself,
good.
how you have been able to find that courage in, or not even courage, that confidence within the new spaces that you want to take up or the new avenues you want to grow
Yeah.
into, when your mind is still telling you like, no, 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 you're gonna drop, you're
Yeah.
gonna fail, the bomb's gonna blow up, like this is the
Yeah.
end.
Well, my fear says nobody's listening.
Yeah.
That's my biggest fear. It's I have an image on the wall behind me. It's an actor standing on stage with an empty auditorium in front of him. It's an
Mm,
image that my dad took, and I have got this big print on the wall behind me, and that's my inner critic saying, "You're gonna try, and nobody's gonna be in the seats." And so that fear will stop me from launching anything ever again because I'm going to put in this effort and nobody's even going to respond to it. So that's the fear. And I could let that gnaw away at me. And I know a ton of my clients have that same thing. They're like, yeah, but what if nobody shows up? Like, what if they do? And if you don't launch this thing, then you are just making that fantasy a reality. You're not even giving them a chance to show up. So you are the one who's perpetuating this fear. And so that's as I see that going in my life now, I have evidence over the past few years as I've developed my business. And this is where I see other entrepreneurs doing the same as they understand their story and they just give it a shot. They step on
mm,
stage, as it were, and they share. They see that someone is actually listening. And that shows up in any different way, right? That can show up from like a small comment to somebody shooting them a DM and saying, I can't believe your story. It's just like mine. Can I share it with you? And then they've built this real connection. For me, it was like, again, I was like in this, like, put on the armor, show up a certain way, be what they want me to be. And specifically, I was in these masterminds and I just felt like, again, like let it all loose. Just ask any question I have for fear of being stupid. Let's just ask the question. And through that time, it sounds arbitrary. It sounds like nothing, but they voted me MVP at the end of that. MVP of this mastermind where I was like, this room that I didn't feel like I belonged in. For 6 months, I showed up the most authentic version of me. And they said that actually is the most valuable thing that is in this room. So that to me is so significant. You're killing it, right? You're like smiling,
I'm
clapping,
dying.
because this is it. Is what I'm realizing is when you show, we think we need to present some version of us that will impress them. But what the crowd, what the audience, what the people are actually asking for is you being fully you. The glory of God is man fully alive, right? When you show up authentically you, that is when the greatest response will come. And for me, that comes, and I fully believe step one of that is dig into your story so you can actually understand what authentically you is. And that's what gives you the confidence, the courage, the clarity to then show up in any room at any time and say, here I am.
Oh my good. We have to end it right there because that was a mic drop moment right there. That was so perfect. So beautifully worded and said. And that can literally be applied in all contexts, whether you're struggling with patience with for your kids, whether it's you're going through
Yes.
some situation in your life, whether you're starting a business, whether you're trying to scale it out, do something different. Like it literally can be applied to absolutely everything. And I highly encourage those of you who are listening to even come back and re listen to this again, because I can guarantee you from what Alex has shared, you will take away something different from it every single time. Not only
Mm,
because that's how our brains work. So it's always good to listen to things more than once. But specifically, he dropped so many beautiful truths that you can take away in your life at any different level, whether it's today, tomorrow you listen to it again, next week you decide to tune into it one more time, you bookmark this, you save this, make sure you definitely go and reach out to him and let him know your takeaway, because that is one of the core wounds that we all face in any aspect of our life, is that we're not being heard and we're not being
mhm,
seen. And
mm,
and one of the biggest trends is finding yourself authentically, right? So and then I say uncovering yourself, and when you can truly walk through your life without that armor, knowing that you have the potential odd nobody in the audience behind you, right? And still be able to say, you know what? I'm just going to give it my all. I'm going to show up anyways. I'm going to speak my truth, and I'm going to find more ways to evolve it and understand it and to articulate it as I grow. That
yeah.
everyone from where you think they're not going to respect you to the containers where you worry that they will actually listen to you, they will find out who you are, and you will no longer worry about who's along that journey on either side with you anymore, because you're just genuinely being you.
Mm,
Oh,
mm.
so good. So good. Alex, I would love for you to drop any final thoughts that you may have surrounding just like owning your story in life, and equally letting everyone know where they can find you and what you have going on so that they can be a part of you and your work and your world.
Yeah, this is brilliant. I love how you've received this and again, reframe it and kind of, package it up for your audience. It's just so beautifully done. Thank you for carrying this conversation today, Riley. I think if there's anything that somebody could say, okay, what's Alex about and what can I take away from this? It truly is that your story has the power to change the world. That when you share your story, you shape the world. This is how our entire species has been formed and shaped, and societies today. And as you say from the beginning, you're like, this is the story that we're a part of.
Yeah.
We need what you have, and we're excited to hear your story.
Ah,
And if you need help on figuring that out, then absolutely reach out to me. I'm on Instagram all the time and love the DMs. So ask me any question. Let me know anything that jumped out to this. Just let me know that you appreciated it in some way. Or if you have a further question, I am there. I'm answering questions. I'm helping people clarify their story, and then we can take the conversation from there. Or if you don't want to dive into a conversation, then just go to alexstreet.ca and you can find all my info there around my coaching and specifically what I'm working on now.
I love it. Well, thank you again so much for being here with us. I'm going to have everything linked in the show notes below. So it's super easy for you guys to go and click and find him and be a part of his world. And just thank you again so much for joining us and sharing your message today.
Really, my absolute joy. Thank you for having me.